With the release of the most recent shirtless final scene, Wolverine, I felt like it was the perfect time to kind of go through all of the figures so far for Wolverine that we have from this movie wave and compare them, do some head swaps, and just some fun comparisons with all the different looks of Wolverine that we have so far. So let's go in order of when these figures were released. So we're going to start with the Wave 1 Wolverine here. This was the first Hugh Jackman Wolverine that we got from this movie, and it came with two different heads. We've got the Hugh Jackman head. We've also got a mask head, even though in this configuration of the armor with the sleeves and the shoulder pads, he didn't wear the mask, but it's a nice touch for them to have included it, just so you can kind of get that look of Wolverine in the mask, in the full suit, blue and yellow, even though it didn't appear like this in the movie. It's a very clean figure. This is kind of a great blank canvas if you're into customizing and doing like weathering with paint and stuff. It's very bright, it's very clean, and he's really only this clean right after Wade finds this variant and takes him to the TVA. Is the only time he's ever this clean, because right after that scene, they're sent to the Void and he gets in the fight with Deadpool and the armor gets all beat up, more like this guy. So this is a very specific look, I guess. But like I said, you get options. You got a very nice Hugh Jackman head sculpt. This is one of the best head sculpts that Hasbro has done. Really, really great head sculpt. This figure came with the two heads, and he also came with an extra pair of hands. You get a right fist, and you get a left sort of open grabbing hand that you can use to grab stuff. Those are the only two extra hands that this one came with, but it does come with the really awesome Hugh Jackman head, and then you get a masked head as well. So moving on, the next two Wolverines that were released are going to be the brown and tan and the battle damage. So let's look at the battle damaged first. This is one that people started to use this to customize because it was taking a little while for them to pump this figure out. Some people took some flesh tone arms from like G.I. Joes or previous Wolverines and put them on this guy and did their own sort of weathering to make this figure before this figure even came out. You can see it's a much darker yellow. It's nowhere near as bright. Even the back, where they didn't do the battle damaged, is still a bit more, I don't know if that's coming across on camera, but it's still a little bit darker than how bright this original one was. And with the battle damage, we also get a new head. We get a masked head with a sort of angry, gritting his teeth look now. And the battle damage is pretty nice. Like I said, it's only on the front of the figure. Kind of a thing that toy companies do with washes and battle damage. They figure you don't really display them facing your wall, so they only do the battle damage on the front. They did some great sculpting with the arms. I believe these are brand new arms. You got Hugh Jackman's musculature, his distinctive vein that he has in that arm. You get some cuts and scrapes on the arms as well. Otherwise, this is going to be mostly the same figure as that original release. He does have better paint, though. So this Wolverine, the battle damaged one, comes with the same masked head as the original. Oops. However, the paint is a little bit better. And you can see that on the noses. On the original one on the left here, you can kind of see the black coming out from under the nose, whereas the paint is much better on this one. And it does have a little bit of, they did some sort of like filling in the grooves on the battle damaged one. And you can tell on the hands as well. So if I give you guys a look at the hands, the yellow on the hands on the battle damaged, much cleaner, much more distinct than the original figure. So if I were to do any like sort of photos with this guy, I'd probably use the hands from this one because they're the same hands, just, you know, better painted. But you can do some head swapping too, because at a certain point in the movie, he loses the sleeves but doesn't have the mask yet. So this would be the look from when they get in the fight in the van and when they get to the sort of heroes hideout and everything. This would be his look then. And so yeah, you can do a bunch of head swaps. It's always fun to do the head swaps. And like I said, he does come with the same sort of neutral head as well. So I really like this figure. A little bit more so maybe even than the original. I mean, a lot of people have said this about the movie in general, and I wish there was an easy way to take the shoulder pads and put them on the sleeveless Wolverine. Maybe if they were connected to the sort of butterfly joint instead of it being attached directly to the shoulder, it would have been pretty easy to swap those shoulder pads onto here. I wish that was a thing in the movie. Why they didn't have the shoulder pads on with the sleeveless look. It's kind of a mystery to me because I think it would have looked much better. This still looks good, but maybe I'll play around and try to put some shoulder pads on a custom of this guy. So let's move on. The next figure that came out alongside the battle damage, they're in the same wave, is the brown and tan suit. And, you know, I'm not afraid to say it, this is the best one of all of these Wolverines. It has the best articulation. So the brown and tan suit showed up before any of these, actually, because that montage of Wade looking for a new Wolverine happened before he found what would ultimately be the Wolverine in the movie. And what they've done here is they've given us an alternate neck with better articulation. So they give you a separate neck here with skin tone, but they didn't give a Hugh Jackman head this time around. Here's a little neck piece that goes on that and kind of drapes back onto the figure. And then you can, if you have the original, or if you have the Logan figure that came with Headpool, then you can create the screen accurate brown and tan suit from that montage scene. And really, he didn't even have this on around his neck. It was more just like this. And of course, in that scene, he is fighting the Hulk. This is the Brand New Day Hulk, by the way. Not a bad figure. I was going to use him for some Avengers stuff, but I felt like this was a perfect opportunity to put him in there. So yeah, this is going to be the most screen accurate version of the brown and tan. He didn't really have the mask hanging off his neck. And I feel like they didn't do the mask in that scene because it was only a half hour into the movie. They were trying to save the mask as a surprise for the very end with, you know, this suit. So I get why they didn't do it. But it is nice that Hasbro went ahead and included the masked head for this figure, just to kind of give an alternate look if you wanted to have a mask on here, even though it wasn't necessarily in the movie. And I appreciate, so this is an all-new head sculpt, by the way. They could have very easily reused one of the previous heads, but you can see that it's a different expression in the face. The fins on the mask actually taper out a little bit more, you can see, and it's nice that they took the time to give us a different head sculpt. You can even see the lines in the mask are also a different sort of, they're the same pattern, but they're different dimensions. So it's really nice that they took the time to do a distinct mask here. Now, the fact that it didn't come with a Hugh Jackman head, and that's how it looked in the movie, is kind of irritating, because then they're expecting you to already have a previous Wolverine figure. But overall, you know, it's not a huge deal. And actually, on the topic of reuse, I fully expected them to reuse the bicep portion from the battle damaged for the brown and tan suit, and they didn't. It's actually a different musculature sculpt, and that's where reuse kind of makes sense. You know, it's the same actor, the same guy, so they could have totally used the same muscles, but they went ahead and did a slightly different sculpt on the musculature as well, which is nice. And this figure also has superior articulation to these guys. He's got, because of that swap out neck piece, he now has articulation in the bottom of the neck and in the top. So you can get full up and down range. They've given him the torso cut that I prefer over an ab crunch, which just gives you so much better range and it looks better. I've always preferred the look of the diaphragm cut versus an ab crunch. So those are a few reasons why this guy is kind of leaning towards being my favorite of the batch. So we'll put him back now. And the final Wolverine that just came out, I got it yesterday. It hit shelves. It's sort of the final scene. You know, this was sort of the final battle with the Deadpool Corps, but this is like the final scene where him and Deadpool are together trying to stop Cassandra from deleting the timeline. So there's those two guys together. From what I can tell, from the waist down, it's going to be your typical blue and yellow suit, and then they've given him. I don't know if this is a completely new sculpt. I've never seen it before, but I don't have every single Marvel Legends to compare it to. It is pinless, so I assume it's somewhat newer. They've gone with the ab crunch, which I really wish they would have done the torso cut like this guy, especially on a shirtless figure. Like if you look at Jada's Street Fighter line, they have the torso cuts and it just looks and moves so much better than an ab crunch. But it's still a good figure. They've given him sort of a glossy front to make him look like sweaty and oiled up like he did in the movie. Doesn't carry over to the back, of course, kind of like we saw before. And we get some great new head sculpts. We get this screaming one, scene specific to the end there. And then he also comes with, at first glance, you might think this is just the same head as the battle damage Wolverine. Very similar. I almost thought they were the same head at first. It's a very similar expression. However, at the end of the movie, when his suit explodes, or when the top of his suit explodes off of him, the mask chin straps sort of explode too, and so he just has his facial hair there. You can see this one's got the mask covering his chin. And so it's going to be a completely new head, even though it's a similar expression. And I appreciate that. And you can also see what's not present on this battle damage Wolverine is there's actually, hope I can get this on camera. It's soft in the sculpt, but you can see some scratches and weathering on the fins of the mask. And that's actually, you might be able to see it better on the box that he came in. So you can see he's got scratches in the mask, and those are on the figure. They're a little softer because this is a render. It's not the actual figure. But I appreciate that, and I appreciate that the weathering is different on the new one than the battle damage. You can see the weathering on this new one is more brown scuff marks, whereas this one, it was pretty much all charcoal and black looking battle damage. And it's a different pattern too. They didn't just use the same pattern for the battle damage. Even on the mask, the new one has, that specific brown scuff on top, whereas this one just has some of the lines filled in. So I appreciate the lack of reuse, even though some of it would have made sense, like reusing the arms. For instance, these arms aren't the same either. I thought they might have been at first, but if you come around to the triceps, these triceps are huge, massive. These ones are pretty good too, but you can tell it's not the same arms. I have the feeling that these arms with the bare fists are going to be reused for the Wolverine coming out. He's wearing a wife beater, but I think they're going to reuse these arms and fists with him. We're going to see. And so let's get into some head swaps now that we're done with that. One of the slightly upsetting or disappointing things that I can already tell off the bat is this new Wolverine, the skin tone, because it's from the end of the movie where he's oiled up, he's like toasty tan, the skin tones aren't going to match any of the previous Wolverines here. So you can see the previous Wolverines all had pretty much the same skin tones, but with this guy, he's so much more tan that I have a feeling head swaps are going to be a little tricky here. For instance, if you wanted to put one of the new heads on the battle-damaged blue and yellow suit, it doesn't look bad, but it's pretty apparent that the face is much more tan than the arm skin tone. And if you're doing photography, you could always, minimize that gap in, Lightroom, or even with some creative lighting, you can get it to look much better. But if you're just putting these on display, you're probably not going to get the skin tones to look quite right. And if we wanted to put one of the previous heads on the new Wolverine, it's kind of the same thing, where now the skin tone on the face is much more pale than the rest of the body, and it just doesn't quite look right, which is a shame, because I was kind of hoping to put the Hugh Jackman head on here. There is a scene at the very, very end when they come out, and Wolverine takes his mask off, and he looks like this, but that the face is now way too pale to really match the body here. Now, one head swap that will work is putting, because the original figure doesn't have any other skin tone showing, he's not sleeveless or anything like that. If you wanted to put the shirtless heads on him, that actually works, and it works well because there's no other contradictory skin tones showing up. And I think that looks pretty cool, even though, again, he doesn't wear the mask with the sleeves and shoulder pads. But that's not bad. That's a cool look. Unfortunately, that's about the only head swap that's going to look decent using this this new Wolverine here, unfortunately. I've even tried the brown and tan because I wanted to put one of the screaming heads on the brown and tan, but being that he has the same skin tone, yeah, it's just pretty apparent that those skin tones don't match. And it's not a huge deal. Head swaps are kind of it's obviously an optional thing. I think this new one, though, is the most accurate to how Hugh Jackman is. He's always oiled up and tan in the X-Men movies. There's a meme going around about how Hugh Jackman's always like oiled up and toasted. So that's kind of a last little comment of the video. I'm looking forward to getting the Wolverine and doing some comparisons with him as well, and just kind of running the gauntlet again, doing some head swaps and taking some fun photos. I'm going to try and get an ending shot here for you guys where Deadpool's looking at Wolverine in a sort of scene where the armor pops off. Let's see if I can get this to look all right. All right, guys, here's where I'm gonna leave you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and the comparisons we've done of all the Wolverines from the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. Let me know if you're hoping for any other variants. There's a bunch from that montage scene. I mean, we still have to get, you know, Elektra, Johnny, maybe some other villains, but there's an Age of Apocalypse Wolverine, there's Old Man Logan. We're going to get the Cavalry, so let me know if there's any from that montage that you hope we get in action figure form. And I'll see you guys next time on All the Figures.